Hello, KZ is sometimes really strange company because time to time they creating really great models like ZSX, ZAX, ZSN Pro and many others with great price to quality ratio, with good build quality and so on. Sometimes they creating models that could be a huge bestseller and hit, but some issues just stop this model one step before becoming a huge bestseller. For example, it happened with their one of their first true wireless models. If I remember right, E10. Maybe you remember that model with ear hooks. They were really good in terms of sound, they have a good battery life, but at the same time they have connection issues. Actually, I don't have with my pair, but many people were telling about the connection issues. They have some QC issues with that model and they really rapidly discontinued it. Then KZ released few really similar true wireless models like S1, S1D, S2, Z1 with a bit different price, different design, but pretty similar sound. Sometimes they creating strange models with odd tuning. Sometimes it could be considered as a taste-based model, like for example KZ-ASF. And sometimes it just doesn't hold well, like ASX. Maybe I am confusing some indexes, and Z10 balanced armature driver model that I reviewed recently. And it could be also considered as a taste-based, but they just tuned it a bit worse than more affordable model, and then they price it at $100, so price quality ratio dropped below the ASF. And then they deliver a model, true wireless model, KZ SA08. And in terms of sound, I'd probably say that this model sounds better than two wired balanced armature models. And especially took into account the price, it became even more ridiculous. But at the same time, this model has some inherited issues that previous KZ true wireless models have. For example, battery lifetime is from 2 to 3 hours depending on the volume and depending on the usage. And for me actually 2 hours of listening for the true wireless model is okay, because I listen them on the go and I never listen them for more than an hour or an hour with a half straight. So for me 2 hours is more than enough, but for many people bigger work time is an issue, and actually many people are complaining about the battery lifetime. Everyone wants like 4 hours or better 5 hours and more, and many companies on the market, even pretty affordable models, deliver that battery lifetime. Also, they using that Realtek chipset. Not sure if it's used here, but most probably it is. And that means that it supports just SBC and AAC codec. But actually for this model they finally created more or less good tuning. But it's 4 balanced armatures per ear, and that means that price is higher, and they want $60 for this model, and that actually brings us to segment with strong competitors. Anyway, enough talks, let's have a closer look. In terms of package, it's just a traditional KZ/CCA package, and we've seen it before many times. You can see that they just mentioned Bluetooth 5.0 and no information about battery lifetime or something like that, but I did measurements, so 2 hours, usually I get 2 hours and a half. Some manual, and actually it happens I tear out this ribbon, so I when I first tried to get them, this ribbon was torn, and as usual it will be hard to get the accessories, to pull them out. They definitely need to make this box a bit bigger. That will improve the unboxing experience. So let's put that aside. Of course, accessory set is more than limited. Basically, you'll get short USB-C cable for charging and two additional pair of tips. So that's it, but we've seen that before. So here is charging case. Now they made it in some plug-like form. They experiment with different cases, so they never repeat the same shape of the case twice. But luckily now they put here USB-C connector for charging. Unfortunately no wireless charging, but when even more affordable models offers it. But at least it's nice looking case. And this time they've made really good and deep sockets for the earpieces, so you can use the vast majority of tips, and at the same time they will be charging in case. So everything is simple, but pay close attention that they touch the contacts, because here used 4 different contacts, so you need to see that LED is turned on. And here is LED indicating the charging status of case itself. Pairing logic is simple. You pull them out, one of them will turn into the active mode, so this time it's the left one, and it starts blinking, and you just connect it, so it's pretty easy. Of course, you can use just one earpiece, switch them, all that stuff is done okay, and they do it normally. In terms of connection quality, for me it's also okay. I'm not sure did they retune it, but it seems that they're holding connection even a bit better than, for example, KZ-Z1. But of course, in areas with lot of interference, where there are a lot of Wi-Fi networks, you can experience some hiccups. Also, of course, it depends on the source. For example, with iPhone, connection quality I get is better. There is a slight delay between the video and sound in games and in games, but there is a high performance mode, so triple tap one of earpieces and they will activate this high performance mode, and it will lower this delay to the acceptable level. So what else I can say? Background noise is pretty slight with them, so no issues here, and the microphone test I will add right now. And a traditional microphone test, recording this part of the video using TWS or what is their index, using their built microphones. I won't apply any equalization or gain correction, so this part will give you an idea of how their microphones sound in quiet environment. In terms of design and build quality, it's typical for KZ. We've seen such design few times before with their previous in-ear monitors. It's basically ergonomic shape, nicely fitting into ears, but as you can see, their depth, or how this dimension should be called, they are a bit bigger in depth than the previous model, so they will protrude out of your ears a bit more. For me it's not an issue, but they will be a bit more noticeable in your ears. Fit quality is pretty good for me, and they have a nice length of spouts, giving pretty decent sound isolation, passive one. They are actually pretty loud, so you can use them even in a noisy environment, but be careful with your hearing. There is a lip for holding the tips on the spout, and there is a protective grill, and stock tips are once again with as a stock tip. They use this version with shorter stems and with made of softer silicone. Actually, I don't like them, they don't provide good sound isolation for me, but luckily here you can experiment with some different tips while they still will be chargeable. But of course not with every single tips, but still better than before. Build quality is normal, controls are okay, so in this aspect everything is on the pretty normal level. Maybe not stellar, but in my opinion okay. They are gathering fingerprints and sensor controls don't allow volume control, but at least you can navigate tracks with them. And of course about the sound. So before proceeding to sound description, I have to make a small correction. Actually, background noise is quite noticeable here. I was tricked a bit during first initial tests, because they disconnect when they're not playing music. They turn off this digital part, and you won't hear that noise. But when you start playing music during the quiet passages, background noise is present, and it's pretty audible, probably because balanced armatures are sensitive. When music is playing, it's not that bad, at least for me, you know, it's okay and it's not big issue. But if you're sensitive to background noise, probably it's not a model for you, and of course this noise spoils the black background, spoiling this audiophilic senses. Also, I didn't get acceptable fit with any of stock tips, so I used small spiral dots here. So let's see that they are charging with them. So if you put them in case and push them in place, assuming that they are connected, LEDs are glowing, and that means they are charging. You need to ensure that they start charge, but after that, of course, you can just close the lid and they will be okay. So they works with third-party tips. And with these tips, actually their sound is pretty nice. It's a V-shaped signature, but it's, you know, it's technical V-shape, so it's basically what they should create for their models that they released for the ASF and ASX. So for that models, if they make such signature, it would be much better offer. So base is pretty big, it's balanced armature, so it have a pretty good resolution, but of course it's spoiled noticeably by the lossy codecs. If there would be aptX with proper source, they could be really good and resolving. But still with AAC codec it's really nice, especially with Apple devices, because Apple use good implementation of AAC, and sound quality is pretty decent. With SBC on the regular Android devices, it's still, you know, like okay for this price tier. Depth is good but not maximum. Low frequencies are noticeably accented, but thanks to the balanced armature nature of these low frequencies, they're not bloated, they're not oversaturated, and actually it's a step forward comparing with previous KZ True Wireless models. Pretty nice texture rendering. Of course, don't expect rich overtones or small nuances, but still normal resolution. And of course they are pretty pleasant for electronic music thanks to the big accent. To provide examples, I will use the Fios M15, and for the low frequencies, basically let it be the Antwoord Banana Brain. It's exactly that electronic music that I was referring, big punchy bass and nice female vocals that is making perfect balance, suiting V-shaped signature pretty well. Mids are recessed, but actually not in terms of frequency response they are noticeably recessed, but in terms of presence it's okay. probably because of some normal balanced armatures used here. So resolution is okay, and they are even trying to highlight the micro contrast to give you a bit more details, and sometimes they succeed. Of course not perfect, also because of lossy nature of wireless codecs, but they're trying to do that and sounding pretty clean and clear. Don't expect performance of wired models, of course, but still pretty normal mids, fairly balanced. They don't trying to add additional weight, or they not trying to add some additional emotions, but with good records it will be really pleasant. And of course they have elevated upper mids, so they highlighting female vocals, they highlighting distorted guitars, so if you're sensitive to upper mids, keep that in mind too. Imaginary stage is about average, so don't expect something stellar, but at least it's more or less present, so it's normal result for the true wireless model, at least at my scale. And as an example for me, it's actually Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. You understand why it's here. And basically with this model, this track is played on the acceptable level. Of course, to get the full emotions, full details and all that stuff, you will need something more expensive and something wired, but for true wireless model it's sounding pretty normal. And treble is a bit of mixed in terms of tuning, and they have elevated lower part of treble, but then from 5 to about 8 or 9 kilohertz they have drop off, probably to hide a bit that part that gives that unpleasant metallic sound. So sometimes with percussions they lacking definition and clarity, but still treble is present, and if you're sensitive for the high frequencies, keep that in mind. And then they have a spike at 9 to 10 kilohertz, and then treble starts rolling off. So basically like treble is like jigsaw. And it's it's a good idea in terms of mass market tuning, because many people just hate this accent in the 5, 6, 7 kilohertz area, and not that good idea from the audiophile perspective. But I don't think that KZ thought about audiophiles creating this model. So basically it's normal in terms of resolution, balanced armature treble with slightly fast attacks and decays, sounding not 100% natural, but at least not too sharp. But of course, if you're sensitive, they close to that level of comfort, so keep that in mind. As an example for the treble, I've got Haken Streams. I really like this progressive metal band, their skillful usage of retro wave, some old synthesizers, some samples, but of course it's first of all it's metal, meaning a lot of guitars and percussions, and percussions require nice resolution, and this model gives that on the treble. But of course it's not sounding 100% natural, but still, for $60 it's pretty okay. What else I can say about them? So basically it's a V-shaped signature, but done with balanced armatures, meaning fun representation, but with at least normal level of resolution and technicality, let's name it this way. Speaking about the compressions, I'd say that it's better than all previous KZ models like Z1, S1, S1D, S2, so it has more resolution and not as warm sound as previous models. But of course, if you like warmer sound, you need to consider their previous models. But in this segment, they have a lot of competitors. And for example, Fios sounding more natural with a bit more forward mids, they have a bit less treble and a bit less focus on the micro detalization, but at the same time, in this in the true wireless world I think dynamic drivers behaves better unless you will use some sophisticated DSP and advanced technologies. So FIOS, what the index of their true wireless model, FW1 or something like that, sounding a bit more natural but with a bit less focus on the micro detalization. Astrotech SA08 is closer to FIO, so also a bit more natural. But still, you know, it's the best true wireless attempt by KZ so far. And the closest one was E10, but same here, they made a bit more pop-like tuning, because E10 was more natural and more resolving, more audiophilic in terms of tuning. This one is more V-shaped with more low frequencies, and they could be much more successful on the market, because if they'd add longer battery lifetime, lower background noise, and probably add some waterproof, it could be a bestseller. But without that, it's just a model with some limitations and pretty normal sound. So it's totally a matter of are you okay with their flows or not, because sound is pretty nice. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.